Good evening. This is a regular City Commission meeting for the City of Largo. Today is Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that if you have a cell phone, please turn it to silent or off so that we don't have any interruptions. We're going to start this evening's meeting with an invocation, and on the agenda it says TBD, so that means I'll be doing the invocation. Following that, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. I pray that you will grant this commission the wisdom to govern and amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of welfare and the true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is an honest disagreement, personal peace in our lives, and joy in our task. I pray for the agenda set before us. Please give us assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Largo. It is in your name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have a couple ceremonial items. The first one is a proclamation recognizing a local hero.
Whereas multi-sport legend is the proud title earned by any athlete that races and completes 5 or more world championship races at the Multisport World Championships, and whereas on May 7th on the island of Ibiza in Spain, Maylee Kuipers reached her long-term goal of earning the title of World Multisport Legend, and whereas from a pool of over 4,000 athletes in over 60 nations, Ms. Kuipers was one of only 15 individuals who raced and completed 5 or more world championships at the Ibiza Multisport World Championships, completing the duathlon sprint, the aquathlon, the cross duathlon, the cross triathlon, and the long-distance aquabike. And whereas Ms. Kuipers was one of only 2 females and was the only U.S. athlete of their team of 400 American racers to do so, and whereas Ms. Kuipers thanked the Largo Recreation, Parks and Arts Department for providing her and the community with resources like the Southwest Pool, Bonner Park, and George C. McGowan Nature Park, where she was able to train, and hopes the next generation will continue to have these assets to become legends themselves. Now, therefore, I, Woody Brown, Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim July 11th, 2023 to be Maylee Kuipers Day in Largo, Florida, and encourage all residents to join in the celebration of Ms. Kuipers' achievement and her commitment to excellence as a world multi-sport legend.
Good evening. This evening we would like to honor and celebrate the achievements of Maylee Kuipers in becoming a multi-sport world legend. On May 7th on the island of Ibiza in Spain, she competed in multiple races during the Multi-Sport World Championship. She was one of only 15 individuals who competed in 5 or more races to earn this prestigious title, and was one of only 2 females and one of only 1 U.S. athlete of their team of 400 American racers to do so. The City of Largo and the Recreation, Parks and Arts Department is proud to have Maylee as a resident and a member of our advocacy board since 2012. She has volunteered much of her time to the City of Largo, and we are grateful for her years of dedication and contribution. Congratulations.
I know I'm tall.
Thank you very much.
The next ceremonial item is Parks and Recreation Month.
Whereas Parks and Recreation are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Largo, and whereas Parks and Recreation promote health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promote time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health, and whereas Parks and Recreation encourage physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles, and whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction, and whereas Parks and Recreation are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now therefore, I, Woody Brown, Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, along with the U.S. House of Representatives and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2023 Recreation and Parks Month in the City of Largo and encourage all of our citizens to enjoy the many benefits available to them through Parks and Recreation.
The National Parks and Recreation Association recognizes the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month. The theme selected by the association this year is Where Community Grows, recognizing the local agencies and professionals that build strong, vibrant, and resilient communities through parks and recreation facilities and programs. During Parks and Recreation Month, the City of Largo is celebrating the vital role parks and recreation professionals play in bringing people together, providing essential services, and fostering the growth of our communities. Parks and recreation professionals make a positive impact on members of the community each day. I encourage everyone to celebrate the month with us by taking a walk or having a picnic in one of our many parks. Try a new program at one of our recreation centers or by attending a show at the Central Park Performing Arts Center or a special event planned throughout the month. At this time, I would like to invite Kai Rush, Chair of the Recreation, Parks, and Arts Advocacy Board, to come forward and say a few words.
Well, I'm tall too. July is Recreation, Parks, and Art Month, and this month we celebrate Largo Recreation, Parks, and Arts staff as we celebrate every day of our lives. When we drive down the streets of Largo and see the beautiful flowers adorning our city, or as busy parents taking our children to Southwest Recreation for swim lessons, or even going out on a date night to see one of the cool performances at CPAC. I've driven through many cities in this nation, and there are cities where people live, there are cities where people work, and then there are cities where people live, work, and play. And Largo is one of those cities. Let me paint a picture for you of how we play. In our city, you will find Mayor Woody Brown playing beach volleyball at Bayhead Park after he cracks a few bats and before he goes and picks up his kids at the McGow Nature Summer Camp. Commissioner Robinson can be seen playing tetherball with the teens in Largo Central Park or running around with his family at the Northeast Dog Park. He probably will ask you to push him in the swing. You can grab a seat next to Vice Mayor Hulk at the 4th of July fireworks or Memorial Day celebrations. If you sit down next to her, you might get a few tax tips on how to save a few bucks. Almost any city event, there is Commissioner Smith with a smiling face at Pride Night and Highland Recreation Pool or Largo Live events, and somehow he doesn't seem to forget many names. Or if you're driving down the street, you will see Commissioner Holmes, who is taking in the breathtaking beauty of Largo's landscapes during his many bike rides. Or you can find Commissioner Gerard walking through Largo's Nature Preserve with his wife, and you can stop and ask him about the native plants. Commissioner Johnson shows us that we live, work, and play in Largo as his company's name is stamped right on a sign that sponsors one of those beautiful medians that we pass every day. And you can grab a free pencil from his company, who is almost at every community event. Now that City Manager Schubert is retired, you can probably find him at a pottery class at the Largo Community Center. As a resident myself, I can tell you after many hours sitting behind a computer screen, it's the staff at Highland Recreation that brings a smile on my face and lightens up my spirits even on bad days as I go for a workout. Almost every resident has a story like this. because this is a community that has helped them grow. All of this is made possible by the Largo Recreation, Parks, and Arts staff. I'm going to ask you a favor. I want you to thank a staff member this month. Shake their hands. Have the kids make them a card. Tell them how much you appreciate them. That simple little thank you will go a far way and mean a lot in their hearts. This year's theme might be where communities grow, but Largo is the example of how to grow a community. Thank you. Woo. You gonna crack my back? I don't know.
All right, thank you. It's always nice to see some folks from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board here. That's where I got my start at the City of Largo some long time ago. Next, we'll have citizens comment. If you'd like to speak about something on the agenda outside of the consent docket, please wait until the item comes up. Do we have any cards this evening?
Yes, I have 5 cards. First is Pat Byrne.
Boy, a lot of tall people here. Pat Byrne, 700 Starkey Road. I learned the word redacted in 1980. HR warned me that a gay activist was going around town fishing for a scandal or a lawsuit. Our foundation was quite prominent. I asked my secretary to black out all personal information on all resumes. As a result, I hired a terrific biostatistician and not an activist. In that decade, I settled a sexual harassment dispute between 2 female employees, with no attorneys ever involved. I hired a special photographer because one of my stars' skin color didn't shine in our team photo. I'm aggrieved to see that 40 years later, in Largo, common decency has been trivialized. You don't indoctrinate character, you demand it. You don't insult personnel by presuming they need to be trained to do the right thing. You don't treat values as a weapon to falsely remove those who threaten you for unrelated reasons. You don't change an organization's priorities and its expectations on employees without public awareness and their participation and involvement in the process. You don't measure progress by self-generated promotional gestures, okay, or accolades, but by buckets and seats. You don't get a pass from your governing board for years of virtue signaling, which is just wing flapping with few signs of actual flight. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are too important to receive such a superficial and unserious approach. In this series, I've highlighted examples where sounds good has prevailed over is good and real good. This example may be the most cynical of all.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mark Fauché.
My name is Mark Fauché, a graduate of Citizen Academy 2016. First thing I want to do is thank you all for being city council members. I know the job doesn't pay very much and you don't get a lot of love and you put in a lot of time, and I certainly appreciate that. I want to single out one person, Commissioner Holmes, for being so accessible. I spoke to him about a month ago. He took my phone call in the evening at dinner time. I do apologize for interrupting your dinner there, but all I hear about Commissioner Holmes is how accessible he is, and he certainly is. I need to bring up an issue that we would like to work on and get corrected. I had spoken to the police department about it, but unfortunately they were unable to correct it. You have these trailers that you tow around the city here, and they're box trailers or light trailers, and
things of that nature, and they're not in compliance with federal law regarding the safety. They are missing the safety pins they're supposed to have when they tow these trailers. The chains are rusted through, as you can see. Here's a picture of the safety pin that's required. But if you go through and look at all the pictures we have here, not one of the trailers is in compliance at all. And you can't very well be towing these trailers around the city, especially when they weigh a couple tons, without them being safe, okay? And they need to be in compliance with federal law. Plus, it's a bad look for the police department. Obviously, they're writing tickets to people who are not in compliance. Well, they need to be in compliance there. I'm going to leave a copy of these pictures for the file record. You can take a look through them, but I'd appreciate it if you would go ahead and direct the police department to get this corrected. I spoke with the folks at the motor pool. We probably got the best mechanics down there in Florida, if not the country, and they can certainly get this problem squared around so it's no longer a safety hazard for the city. One of these trailers is sitting in my neighborhood right now, and before that trailer moves, I would like the mechanics to go out there and render it safe before it's towed off, because the last thing we need is something that weighs a couple tons come loose and obviously injure someone. And I think I have a little bit of time left. As far as the pickup trucks are concerned for the police department, I would vote against that. I would say no. I would much rather see that $100,000+ be actually spent to feed people or be spent to fill potholes, a lot of other things. We got more than enough vehicles here in the city. And make do with what we got, and let's take care of the people. All right? Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could just leave those with the clerk. Sure. Appreciate it.
Next speaker is Craig Murtha.
Hello. A couple of times I came here and talked about building in storm surge zones. And sometimes I get nervous up here. Well, I always get nervous up here. And I talk too quick, and I don't communicate as well as I should. But I think I did a bad job there, because after I had left, there was discussions. One meeting there was discussions of floodplains and coastal high hazard zones, and those are also bad places to be building a lot of density. But I'm talking about, what I'm talking about is just basically run-of-the-mill hurricane evacuation zones. That's really the term I should use, because I don't think the storm surge maps are really accessible, but we have very good accessibility on the hurricane evacuation zones. Anybody can go to the Know Your Zone, Pinellas County, and see a map of Pinellas County. And if you look at it, you can see that maybe half the county sits in a evacuation zone. And that concerns me because, from time to time we have evacuations, calls or they're talking about it. I can't really remember exactly how far it's gotten, but if we ever get a Katrina type event and we have to evacuate that half of the county, and especially as we build more and more density into that half of the county, I just can't imagine what an event that'll be. I mean, we think we're well prepared, but like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. when a big storm punches us in the mouth, our plan's going to just disintegrate, I'm afraid. Especially if we have to move hundreds of thousands of people. And I'm also afraid that a lot of those people won't leave because we keep having false alarms. And the other problem is, the more people we put into these evacuation zones, the more lead time the emergency management people will need to evacuate everybody. So they're going to have to call these things further and further out, which is going to reduce the accuracy. So as they call these things further and further out, people in this room will be affected by that, because people in this room live in evacuation zones. So instead of having to evacuate 18 hours ahead, you'll have to evacuate 24, 30, 36 hours ahead, because more and more population is in those areas. Plus, if we ever did have that big event, can you imagine with all of the industrial that's built in these evacuation zones? Look at a lot of our industrial base in this county. It is in those areas. And we could have such an environmental disaster. It could also be a national security problem if we're manufacturing important stuff for the military in those areas. So, and we could break that supply chain. and an awful lot of workforce. Having a workforce in these areas, people who are living to paycheck to paycheck, if they lose their homes, if we lose, well, you can see that would be a big problem.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Greg Gardner.
My name is Greg Gardner. I live on Adrian Avenue. My presentation is a 15-part series on civic virtue. Civic virtue is the long-standing cherished idea that members of the community should participate in local government affairs to maintain a fair balance of democracy. Citizen input, feedback, scrutiny are essential to mitigate corruption and self-interest upon duly elected officials. Civic virtue series pertains to public safety. Topic of discussion will be narcotics within Largo's jurisdiction to analyze our police department's policy and behavior. 2,700 EMS overdose responses plus 600 overdose fatalities last year in Pinellas County should sound alarms, but our city officials are silent as if it didn't exist. My question today is why? I will take this community on a journey going back 4 years that involves a drug gang who took over Adrian Avenue. I will share details of the extremely upsetting episode and the hell our neighborhood endured during 2018 and 19, while our police turned their loyalty to the drug gang. With absolutely no help from PD, the sheriffs and a federal special agent were summoned to intervene. Ground zero was 2710, 2720, 2785 Adrian Avenue. This episode ended August 21st, 2019, the single largest raid on high-level drug dealers in Largo's entire history by the Sheriff's Department, our loyal sheriffs. I will take our community deep into the trenches of how Largo was and still is a safe haven for narcotics dealers. This material will include complicit parties, of them, Pinellas Park Psychiatrist, Pinellas County Housing Authority, Largo Pop and NARC team, and 3 neighbors. This material is not part of any ongoing investigation. It's public knowledge. This material has been cleared by the sheriffs and the DEA. This material is also being forwarded to government authorities in Tallahassee. There will be zero tolerance if this public session is muted, garbled, or redacted. Due to the sensitivity of this nature, this material, and to mitigate foul play by city officials, I retained legal counsel from the Robert Eckert Law Firm. Any foul play or attempts to thwart these sessions by Largo officials immediately goes to Attorney General. This presentation has no relevance to Attorney Matt Widener. We sincerely welcome Matt Widener's ill attempts to inhibit civic virtue and free speech. Let's take this time to re-examine policy on the single most important crisis in our community: social genocide by narcotic predators on Adrian Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mark Clutho.
Mark Clutho, Largo. An observation, Recreation and Parks Month proclamation. I know of no other city in the country where it's recreation and parks. They're all parks and recreation. In fact, they had a TV show. It was Parks and Rec. Isn't that something? Boy, it's turning my stomach looking at that hideous building going up on West Bay. I mean, it is hideous. I don't know if it could be more ugly. Headline from July 6, NOAA says 40% of oceans are facing marine heat waves. And here from June 29, the Earth's axis is shifting, and we're the reason. And last Tuesday, the Earth's hottest day ever. Climate change is quickening the pace for fires and heat. And here, scientists call wildfires smoke the new normal. Well, It's called cause and effect. You make your stupid buildings like that library and the community center and now the new city hall, you get a result. You ignore the science of high-performance passive solar building. It's just a doggone shame. Really sad you ignore science. You know, and then I see people wearing coats. In the summertime, when it means you buy more air conditioning for the building. Now, isn't that asinine? Purely asinine. Can't you think?
Thank you.
That's all the cards.
Next is approval of tonight's agenda.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next is the consideration of the minutes from the regular meeting of June 20th, 2023.
Move approval. Second.
Any changes or corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Could I hear the consent docket, please?
Item 5, approval of the Mearshire Park subdivision plat. Item 6, authorization to purchase one 2023 Ford Maverick pickup for the Largo Police Department to replace vehicle 39-751 from Duval Ford in the estimated amount of $27,500 in accordance with the Florida Sheriff's Association Light Vehicle Contract FSA 22-VEL-30/FSA 22-VEH20. Item 7, authorization to purchase one 2023 Ford F-150 vehicle for the Largo Police Department from Duval Ford in the estimated amount of $70,800 in accordance with the Bradford County Sheriff's Contract BCSO 22-27-1.0.
You've heard the consent docket. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent docket without commission discussion, including staff background provided in the commission packets.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 8.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm going to put a map up on the camera real quickly. Right. See if I can zoom in a little. All right. Staff is presenting on a First Amendment to DA 20-001, which is a development agreement between PV East Bay LLC and the City of Largo. The site is located at 4825 East Bay Drive, as shown on this map, and totals 4.34 acres with 4 total parcels to date. A development agreement was approved on August 6, 2020 for commercial development of the site. Since that time, the site has been successfully developed in accordance with the DA and the approved site plan and development order. Per the recorded development agreement, the owner is required to submit an annual report demonstrating compliance each year for the remainder of the 30-year development agreement term. The owner has requested the city remove this requirement for subsequent ownership as the property has been developed in compliance with all terms and conditions of the original development agreement. The city would still be required to conduct its annual review of the development agreement per the Florida statutes, specifically subsection 13.2 of the DA or development agreement is requested to be amended. Staff do recommend approval of the First Amendment to DA 20-001 and are available for questions. Additionally, the owner's legal representative is here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
We have no cards.
Any questions? Commissioner Holmes?
Gee, shouldn't we have Brian come up for a 25-minute dissertation or something? No? Isn't this the parcel used to have that Lutheran church on it?
Yes, sir.
And now it's got the chicken place and the burger place and a bunch of other stuff?
That's correct, yes. I think
Okay, I just wanted to see him walk up like that, so.
You added to my steps, thank you.
So I had a question about what are some of the things that in the out years that we would look at as a part of this development agreement to make sure that they still comply with it?
so. There's numerous terms that are still going to be valid for a 30-year term for that development agreement. They have already developed the site in compliance, so we're not anticipating any kinds of major changes anytime soon on the site, but staff are still required to take a look at the development agreement. It's still in place for the next 30 years, and just ensure anything that happens on the site moving forward is still in compliance. So if they were to redo any kind of parking or signage on the site, that may impact what's in the development agreement, so we would take another look at that.
And so this change would just eliminate the need for the owner to report to us?
Correct.
Right.
Yes, and it's really reporting to us that they're in compliance. So, staff are still going to have our due diligence of checking that and verifying there's been no modifications to the site.
Right. So if there's a building permit pulled in 5 years, we would check that against
Yes.
the development agreement? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
Do we have any parcels in the city where the owners have to come back to us for decades on end?
We do. We have several development agreements in place, and they all have that same 30-year term. So technically, we are getting these reports from them, even if it's just a letter verifying and it's a developed site, but we haven't really had many requests to rescind or remove that requirement. Sometimes it's just a one-page letter demonstrating that they reviewed. There's been no changes to the site since that time. And then staff will always have the requirement to check the DA and review that annually because of the Florida statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I move to approve the First Amendment to Development Agreement DA 20-001.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next is ordinance number 2023-44.
All right, let me get my presentation up. There we go. Can you guys see it? No? Okay, awesome. Good evening. The item before you is a small-scale future land use map amendment for a 1.39 acre parcel of land located at 9216 Ulmerton Road. As stated in the city's Comprehensive Development Code, CDC, and Florida statutes, first readings of small-scale future land use amendments do not require a public hearing. The property is situated east of 93rd Street, which is a private drive, and south of Ulmerton Road. The property was annexed into the city in 2008. At the time of the annexation, the property had commercial, retail uses in the commercial strip abutting Ulmerton Road, such as a deli restaurant, produce shop, a craft store, a barber shop, and other retail uses that remained as legal nonconforming uses in industrial general. The uses have been abandoned with the exception of the barber shop. It is the intent of the applicant to establish retail-type uses in the 9,420 square foot portion of building number 1, abutting Ulmerton Road, and keep the 20,000 square foot warehouse portion as warehouse uses. As a result of the nonconforming uses being abandoned, the property owner has had a hard time leasing building number 1, which has prompted the property owner to pursue a future land use amendment to change the existing industrial general land use to industrial limited land use. The property went through a parcel split in 2023 to split a 1.39 acre portion of a 13.1 acre property. Amending the land use classification from industrial general to industrial limited will facilitate the uses allowed within building number 1. In the future land use amendment, if the future land use amendment is approved, it will represent a decrease in the overall site density and intensity. The proposed future land use amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted Largo Comprehensive Plan, Comprehensive Development Code, countywide plan rules in Chapter 163 of the Florida State Statutes. As you can see on the slide, the applicant is requesting to change the existing future land use map from industrial general that you see in the dark gray to industrial limited that will then be light gray on the City of Largo's future land use map. Additionally, they are going through a tier 2 through the county, so they would be changing from a industrial, which is the existing countywide plan map, to employment, which is the proposed. And you can see the change from the gray to the purple. In the aerial, the subject property is a part of the Ulmerton Industrial Mart, and this parcel is the northernmost parcel of the 3D Investment Irrevocable Trust, which is approximately a 19-acre industrial complex which is not affected by the future land use amendment. So on here you can see that northern parcel, and the part that they want to use, the main reason why they want to do industrial limited is for that northern portion of the parcel where you can see there's storefronts. So these are underutilized storefronts, and they have been underutilized for a long time now, and the applicant is seeking to switch it to industrial limited to be able to have uses such as like retail, or just have other uses that are just more allowable other than the industrial general. The proposed future land use map amendment was reviewed and recommended for approval by the Planning Board on June 1st, 2023 with a 6-0 vote. Staff is seeking approval to transmit this small-scale flume amendment to Forward Pinellas for a Tier 2 review. The Tier 2 process applies to flume amendments that trigger a corresponding amendment to the countywide plan map. Tier 2 amendments require approval at public hearings of the Forward Pinellas Board and the countywide planning authority before local adoption can be finalized. And then within the next steps, assuming the Tier 2 review is approved, it is anticipated to be presented to the City Commission for a second and final reading approximately around November 7th, 2023. And if approved at the final reading, staff anticipates the amendment to be completed around December 8th, 2023. And that's it.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards. Ordinance number 2023-44, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City of Largo Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map classification of the within described tract of land located at 9216 Ulmerton Road from Industrial General (IG) to Industrial Limited (IL), consistent with the City of Largo Comprehensive Plan, amending the City Future Land Use Map on file in the Office of the City Clerk pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 163, Part 2, Florida statutes, and the Pinellas Countywide Plan rules, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Questions from Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. I support this. I have no problem. Just more of a question. Both sides of this have been redeveloped into something new and modern. Is that under consideration for this, or, I mean, this building was built, what, in the 70s, or late 70s?
Yeah, it was.
So is there any consideration for redevelopment of this, or is it just turning into more trying to market to?
Yeah, they're not planning on redeveloping that portion of the parcel. They are maintaining that warehouse use in the back, and they just really want to be able to utilize those storefronts as intended in the past, since they have had retail, restaurants, delis, puppy stores, and doggy daycares, which now, due to them being abandoned, they are no longer allowed uses. So this will just give them an option to be able to use those parcels or those suites, so they can use those suites, usually under a conditional review. So they'll still have to come in for a conditional review before they can even be established. Like, for example, retail would need a conditional use approval before they can come in.
Okay.
So it's like it gives them more opportunities, but they'll still need, most of them still need a conditional use approval.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So you mentioned retail. What are some other types of businesses that are conditionally allowed in industrial limited? and not allowed in industrial general?
So one example could be like if someone wants to set up a religious institution is another one. Some other ones can be, I'm trying to think, like if they want to do no personal services. I'm trying to think of what other ones there are.
That's all right. I know where I can find it.
Yeah, I was like, there's a whole list, and I think you know how long it is. So I'm trying to remember like what I know off the top of my head.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-42 on first reading and transmit the amendment to forward Pinellas prior to scheduling a second reading.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is ordinance number 2023-47.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Ordinance 2023-47 is the second of our quarterly budget amendments that we're bringing this year with the new quarterly budget amendment process. As you know, throughout the year, changes, corrections, and other amendments to the annual operating budget arise throughout the year. And so this budget amendment contains a variety of those changes across funds and departments. Included in this budget amendment are personnel reclassifications and corrections in the administration department. In the general operating department, which contains non-departmental citywide revenues and expenditures, we have additional transfers related to our property insurance costs, which came in substantially higher than were budgeted. We also have transfer for the ERP loan payment. This is just correcting for some differences in accounting, so additional transfers for that loan payment to the debt service fund. We're also transferring fund balance back to those funds from our technology capital project fund that balances out and offsets those costs. In the community development department, we have additional revenues from program income requiring us to amend the budget to allow for additional expenditures in the SHIP fund for our affordable housing programs. We also have an amendment for the West Bay Drive CRA fund to allow for some additional closeout costs associated with the Downtown Triangle project. In the Information Technology Department, we have adjustments to reflect updated personnel funding allocations, as well as the funding allocations related to the new land management software project. In the Police Department, we have funding for capital equipment replacement vehicle purchases and the Lost Fund. And finally, in the Recreation, Parks, and Arts Department, there's some repair and maintenance at the golf course parking lot, as well as some position classification changes. And with that, staff both from the affected departments as well as the Office of Performance and Budget are here for any questions.
Ordinance number 2023-47, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget adopted by resolution number 2337 by appropriating expenditures in the amount of $1,812,900 for various personnel, operating, capital, and other needs as described in Exhibits A and B to this ordinance.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
We have no cards.
Any questions? Commissioner Holmes.
Go for it, Michael. You know, Will, I read this thing and I said, boy, if this doesn't look like a buffet. You know, you got some yin here and you got some yang there, and I said, you know, $1.8 million, we're kind of treating this thing like, you know, going to Publix and buying some groceries. I mean, it was astonishing. I started writing this stuff down. I said, you know, I'm just going to figure this out for the heck of it. And I said, nah, I ain't going to do that. Well, I tell you what, I'll give you a kudos for it, though, because that's a lot of work to do this stuff. You know. By the way, is there any feedback yet from the state on the property tax revenue?
We will have some more information about our property taxes at the budget work session this coming Friday. So both our information from the property appraiser's office as well as everything that goes along with that. So
okay,
we'll cover that at Friday's work session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
My question is the positions that we want to delete and add, why? And the background a little bit from an event assistant to a recreational leader. What's the reasoning behind those two positions readjusting?
Certainly, I might ask some of our staff from the Recreation, Parks, and Arts Department to speak to that one. Thank you.
Good evening.
So our event assistant at the Central Park Performing Arts Center, that's the location for that particular position. When we've had difficulty recruiting and maintaining staffing in that classification. And as we evaluated it, that classification is 3 grades below the other positions that do similar work in the recreation side of the house. So the Recreation Leader 2 makes that position in line with the duties of the position and aligns that with the other positions that do similar work at our 3 major recreation centers.
What, so you said you had difficulty getting this, I'm assuming for the money. A lot of places have issues, that is. Do we think this will be adjusting enough to be able to get this position filled?
We have to do something. That's the goal, yes.
Okay, all right. How about the arborist and the tree trimmer position? Is it the same kind of thing?
Similar. What we're finding is the people that have the right skill set and certifications to actually be an arborist. So this is almost not quite reverse, but adding that tree trimmer classification makes that the base so that we can actually have a trainee that can build into the arborist.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hulk.
Actually, that was kind of my question. So do we have more than one arborist then? I mean, if we're going to...
We have a total of 4 positions that do that kind of work.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we still have one on board.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had 2 things that kind of jumped out at me. One was in Community Development Department, allocating additional fees in the amount of $65,000 from the West Bay Drive Fund. So is that the total cost of permitting for that project, or is that an additional amount with the already budgeted permitting?
Might ask our city engineer to speak to that one. They've been working on helping get that project closed out with the contractor permits and everything else.
So Mayor, to answer that question, at the next commission meeting, we'll be bringing to the commission approval for the takeover contract to get the Plaza project permit compliant. We also have reclaimed approximately $51,000 from the open previous contractor. So the offset is close to being neutral for the takeover contract versus what we recovered from the previous contract. So the goal is to get the site fully operating electrically both, and then have it pass a building permit. And then our operating departments can then take over the operations and management of that properly.
Okay, thank you. The other one is kind of along the same lines in RPA. Additional funds, the amount of $150,000 for the parking lot. Is that above? I know we had talked about repaving that lot. Is that above? Did the cost go up by that much? Is that?
It's not just the cost increase. Once they started planning for that parking lot, they've also discovered that there is a section of the parking lot that requires much more work than they initially anticipated.
Okay.
So that's what the additional dollars are for.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-47 on first reading and schedule second reading and public hearing on August 1st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next is item number 11 on ordinance number 2023-48.
Good evening. This ordinance is to request the authority to seek borrowing in the amount of $21 million over the next fiscal year, this current year, and fiscal year 2024 for the wastewater fund upcoming CIP projects. Figure out how to advance this.
I'm not sure. Try next slide, please. Sometimes that works.
I only have a few buttons. Is it this one? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so in accordance with our city charter, we can only borrow money if it's authorized by an ordinance. So the purpose of bringing this to the commission now is because we have plans. You've seen them in the CIP as well as the 2024 proposed budget for some major wastewater projects that include the lift station, the infiltration and inflow abatements, as well as some floodplain mitigation. So we've looked at the cost of all of these projects together and looked at what we've needed to borrow in the current fiscal year as well as expectations for next fiscal year. I think I got the right remote this time. So the large upfront costs, we don't have the amount in fund balance to pay for these projects. And we also don't know the results of some of the grants that we've applied for that we're looking at in 2024, so which is why we're not seeking borrowing for the full amount at this time. So as I mentioned, the CIP for 2024 through 2028 has these projects in them with estimates of about $20 million. And next slide. Okay, so planning for this, currently we're going to be bringing our first debt proposal to the commission in August of 2023. Again, we're breaking it up into two different loans. The first one will be $9.4 million, and that's for projects we have planned in 2023, including those lift station inflow and abatement projects for 4 different lift stations. So as I mentioned, the state appropriations, we're also working with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection on some of those covenants that we have on our current existing wastewater debt. There are some pieces that we need to seek approval from them for. And right now, if you look at our fund balance, this is in the proposed 2024 budget document. It's quite small, I understand, but if you're asking why are we borrowing, we're continuing to maintain fund balance. Estimated at year-end 2023 is about 32%, which includes this borrowing as well as the associated expenditures. So we're looking at, for purposes of future years, we're looking at potentially plugging in the 9.5 is what's sitting in here right now for 2024 borrowing. Again, we're seeking approval for $21 million so that we can approve the actual borrowing with a resolution as opposed to coming back with an ordinance. But it will still be presented to the commission after we have more information on the grants that we've applied for. So just to give you an idea of what's currently existing in the wastewater fund, we have 2 loans through the state revolving fund, and those were to improve some of our pumping system, the treatment plant upgrades. There's some information on the slides as to our original loan for the first set of projects that we were doing between 2014 and 2018 was about $81 million. As of June 30th, our balance was about $62 million there, and we're paying on that loan through June of 2036. The secondary loan, we actually are just about to submit the final drawdown for that. We're planning on borrowing the full amount through the SRF program, and our payments are shown there of what we're expecting to pay annually for those. So as I mentioned, our future sewer debt plans at this time were in 2023 to issue and seek your approval on a $9.4 million issuance. Next fiscal year, we're going to be looking at the balance, and then in 2026, we're looking at funding the non-surface water discharge project, and we'll be looking at SRF loans for that project in particular. So for timing purposes, we did release an RFP to seek some proposals for this debt. They were due back yesterday, so we're going to be, again, bringing a recommendation to the commission for approval. Our planned award date for that debt would be August 15th, so we would receive the funding before the end of this fiscal year. And the intention of this ordinance is to reimburse any expenditures we've had to date, as well as the remaining expenditures for those projects. So staff is available for any questions.
Ordinance number 2023-48, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, authorizing the borrowing of money in an aggregate amount not to exceed $21 million from one or more lending institutions based on award of a request for proposal, establishing its intent to reimburse certain capital expenditures incurred in connection with the cost of the project as defined in the ordinance with proceeds of a future non-taxable financing and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
We have one card, Craig Murtha.
Hello. That sewer project looks like an important project. It's a good project, and if we don't have the money, I guess we've got to borrow the money. I guess my concern is that we keep loading up the city with more and more debt. And I think part of it, the reason is because maybe we're spending money in places where we shouldn't. Maybe we should be more careful. There's just so many examples. I mean, if we're spending money on police, fire, public safety, health, and complete street programs like you're doing, that, by the way, they're excellent complete street programs, 20th Street, Trotter, Rosary. I mean, those are great investments. And in safety and just beautification, sidewalks like doing the sidewalks in downtown, that one I question the way that whole thing was done. I don't think we put enough thought into that. I think it was something like $3.5 million. Already one block of it is, I think it's destroyed. I didn't look through the fence, but I'm assuming that where the city hall is, where we poured that sidewalk, I'm assuming that's destroyed now. What's going to happen when we do the other 2 blocks of apartments? That was $3.5 million. I know there was some sewer and other infrastructure involved there, but and then also they didn't even do cutouts for the trees, big enough cutouts for live oaks. I mean, that was a no-brainer. I don't know what happened there. I questioned the engineer on that at the Tutterow School that night, but nobody listens. I should have been coming to meetings. This is why I'm coming to meetings now. I hate coming to meetings. I would much rather be walking the beach.
Same.
I'd be in my garden. There's so many things. I almost decided I wasn't going to come anymore, but I really think that I've got to come because I'm just not seeing shrewd moves being made. I mean, you are all shrewd people, but I don't think we're thinking enough about the things we're doing, $500K for that plaza out there with the lights on it. Now the vines are growing all in front of the lights last weekend when I was out there. Maybe you've trimmed them by now. Back then when you built that, you could have built a large house for $500K. And that plaza looked good when it was redone. $80-something thousand for lighting the trees on West Bay. I'm not sure where that's going, but I even questioned, is that going to be a safety hazard, with drivers there? I hope those lights aren't in anybody's eyes. And I'm all for lighting if it's a public safety thing, lighting crosswalks. I know there's dark crosswalks. We're even putting in crosswalks that are dark, that are hard to see because they look prettier. There's lives we need to save. We should be putting white crosswalks everywhere all the time, and they should be well lit. Listen, you're great people, and I appreciate everything you do. And I appreciate that your public service, because like the other man said, $20,000 a year for a lot of smart people is cheap. So I'm glad you're here. I haven't raised my hand to do it, so I'm glad you've been doing it all these years. And and I know that you're watching every dime, but I'm going to keep coming here and keep watching those dimes with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
So I just want to state, first of all, maybe we can get some of out of the 20 million or the whatever we borrow here, we can get a raise to $20,000. That'd be rule number 1. So we'll see if we can work that through. But I appreciate the comments. But my question was, the grants that we're looking at, are we looking through Resilient Florida?
Yes.
Okay, and man, I really had a really good question. I wrote down the resilient grants and then.
There's a couple other people.
Oh, that's no appropriations. So so the other part of the funding we're looking for outside of the loan would be appropriations. Can you, I guess, talk through that a little bit? I just want to be
So state
knowledgeable.
Appropriations for some of the projects, yes.
Yes.
I know we've applied for the LMS, the Resilient Florida grants, as well as state appropriations. And again, the applications are sitting out there. We're before the deadlines. We're waiting to hear back on some of those projects. So I know there's a $1.1 million Resilient Florida grant. I don't know the state appropriation amount that we've been seeking at this point, but again, that's why we're not going to bring a second piece of debt to the commission for approval until we've upturned every rock we can for
All right.
grants available.
So I guess my question would be, I'm in favor of doing, of borrowing the money when we need to, would you like for us to be kept in the loop as far as where we go with the grant process as well as the appropriation process?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
I'm number 3.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith? I'll come back to you.
Sorry.
Oh, you want cuts?
Sure. We applied, we reached out to Congressmember Luna, correct, for some help assistance, correct?
Yes, I
On
believe
the lift
that.
station, and this was turned down, am I correct?
I believe that's the case, but I'd have
Okay.
to talk with her.
It wasn't submitted.
It wasn't submitted.
Okay.
I would say, like we've talked about reaching out to other Congress members who may assist in this, also keep us in the loop a little bit, because I have a working relationship with Congressmember Castor, who may be able to help on that part a little bit more also. To tie off of that, I mean, I was really disappointed to the part where I was well, that's another story about that one. But with this, you said on 2026, it's looking at the injector wells. Is this part of the money that we're looking at for that? Or
So-
just this is the lift stations?
This is the lift stations primarily, and then some planning expenditures that have to do with the future projects. So, with SRF loans, it's generally one larger project, which is why we aren't going that route to seek for this debt. We're going to do bank loans, because it's a bunch of smaller, different lift station elevation projects, primarily.
Okay. I have reservations with debt. I mean, we're starting to get a little, even my house, when I start seeing debt a little bit, I start questioning a little bit. So I agree with Craig a little bit. I'd like to keep an eye on this a little bit more and count our pennies and see where we can go on this. So I wish you the best, wish us the best on going this way. But I am a little concerned, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Holmes.
Rebecca, how much money, what is the total debt on environmental services, on this, related to the sewer? What's the
So-
total?
Currently, with both of the loans, it's outstanding about $120,000 or $120 million
120 million, that's with or without this?
without.
So you're talking now 130 plus million.
Yes.
Any prospects of those debts ever being paid off?
So I will be bringing to a future commission meeting, a proposal for rate increase, because again, in order to pay off the debts and pay for the capital, we had some stints of time where we didn't raise the rates and we didn't build that fund balance in order to be able to anticipate, the high cost of capital when it occurs. So, the first SRF loan is paid off in 2036, so we still have several years on that. The other one we will start paying next fiscal year, so it won't be paid off until 2044. So the debt that we're seeking right now will be a 20-year loan for these projects. Again, they're large capital projects that are expected to last more than that 20-year mark. But 2036 would be the first time we're going to be paying
All right.
off some of the
When
existing
you
debt.
bring this back to us, you know what I'd like to see? We all received an email from a lady living in Largo. She's on a fixed income. She's hurting right now. She's hurting right now. And she said, don't raise my utility rates anymore. I can't afford them. I guess she's living in a mobile home park or something. What I'd like to see when we're doing this stuff, what is the cost to the average family or the average business in Largo when we're borrowing all this money and it's got, 10, 20, 30 years or more worth of payoff on it? I mean, I'm not concerned about it because I'll be long dead. But it's one of these things where we're incurring these debts. We're almost looking like the federal government, that every time they turn around and say, well, just go borrow another $1 trillion and be done with it. That's going to come home to haunt us. And I just want to make sure that we're looking at this from a fiscally sound point of view, that, this needs to be done and this is why. And if we can go to the feds and, shake a couple dollars out of them, fine. If the state will do it, fine. But I'd like to see what the actual cost to the family and the city of Largo will be with all this borrowing. Matter of fact, I'd also like to see it if you include the $80 million for the city hall and any other projects where we're just borrowing more money. Don't mind me, I'm one of these cheapskates, and I have no earthly debt, none. And that's just me, that's my thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
What's our likely interest rates we'll be borrowing at right now?
So we've looked at, we've received some quotes on general obligation debt, which would be if we were committing non-ad valorem tax revenues, which this is not because it's wastewater enterprise funds. And those, as of yesterday, were in the 3.85 range for 20-year debt. So, in our budget, we've estimated doing a tax exempt borrowing at looking at between 4% and 5% for the 20-year mark for projectionary purposes for this debt and the next piece of debt. But hopefully it's going to be less than that.
We have an opportunity to refinance that at once interest rate drops later. Is that doable for cities? I didn't know if we can do that or not.
So you can, in the proposal that we're seeking right now, we were looking at having no early payoff penalties for this debt. So if something does happen where we're looking at, having a 20-year debt, we want to pay it off early, there wouldn't be a penalty to the city to do that. And we would be able to potentially take out additional loans at a lower rate to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's great to know.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Simonis.
Thank you. I wanted to address just one thing from Commissioner Holmes. So we will go through on Friday at the budget work session the impact to the average Largo resident for all of our rate increases. I'm not sure if we can have the other calculation already, but we can talk about it. And just in regards to the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system, just so everyone is aware, we've been in the process of recapitalizing the entire system for the last 15 years. So we're essentially rebuilding an entire new wastewater system. And if we were to pay for that in cash up front, all of our residents here today would have to pay for that, and the rate increase would be quite dramatic. So instead, we are taking debt and trying to do, respect intergenerational equity in terms of financing the recapitalization of the plant that'll last 50 to 80 years. So this has been an ongoing recapitalization issue, and now we're also dealing with some of these floodplain and resiliency mitigation issues as well that will last for many years to come. So it's always a balance of when you pay for something up front in cash versus taking debt. And in the wastewater fund, because that is an enterprise fund, we do tend to go towards debt when the costs exceed our normal capital costs that we see within our regular rate. So we'll talk about more of that on Friday.
Yeah, there's no question about you're prudent about the method. It's just the effect that it has on some of these people. It just, and I don't know how we could possibly address that, because you can't say, I'm going to charge Michael this amount of money for the 1,000 gallons, and Eric's going to pay a different amount for the 1,000 gallons. So it's going to be the same to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Meredy, because I had that very similar answer, but you were much more eloquent than I was. So I appreciate that, because I didn't have to come up here and sound silly. But yeah, I think, philosophically, when we're looking at this, I appreciate absolutely, the emails that we receive from our the residents here in Largo. Costs are up on every single thing, on everything. And it's not just the residents, but it's also this organization, right? So everything that we do as an organization is more expensive than it was last year. To Meredy's point, we have literally rebuilt our wastewater treatment system and throughout this city, and the impacts of rising sea levels and stormwater and all of those things are going to continue to impact the city of Largo. And this has nothing to do with the conversation we're having with finance right now, but we have to continue to think about those things. And what is the impact if our stormwater system doesn't work? What's that financial impact? It's going to be a heck of a lot more than $20 million, or even the $100+ million that we've borrowed over the last 15 years. So I just want to kind of show the other side to that. I appreciate both sides of it, really, I do. But I also want to make sure that we understand that we have to have a working stormwater system, and if we have to have those. Our wastewater system, and we have to be able to raise those lift stations in order for them to continue to work as the sea levels rise. So, and which is happening daily. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do you recall the interest rates on the two larger state revolving fund loans?
So they're varying. There's actually 4 or 5 amendments to both of them. So on the current one that we're drawing down on, we have a few pieces of it. We would get amendments from the state of around, $8 to $10 million. Some of them have 0% interest rates. So combined, I don't recall. I could bring that to the next meeting on
My
Friday.
recollection is it's like under 2%.
It's very low. Yeah, it's very low. And actually, I looked up the last bank issuance that we did was for the ERP. We borrowed for 5 years from Regions Bank for the implementation of Workday in our ERP system, and that was taken out in 2020, July, and it was a 1.18% interest rate. So they've been heading up now.
Thank you. I also, in the last 15 years, we were talked about rebuilding our entire system. We spent, in my calculation, well over $500 million, and the fact that we're only 120 in debt is, I think, a testament to our, being pretty fiscally conservative as far as spending this money. My question about repaying, the plan is to repay this debt entirely through wastewater fees, is that correct?
Yes, so we're actually working on like a master bond resolution now to determine future borrowings and set the tone for those future borrowings in the wastewater fund when they are necessary. So we will be committing strictly wastewater fund revenues, and again, our wastewater population of people served is about 110,000 versus the city population of 84,000. So this is spreading the costs against our actual wastewater service area.
And I would also be interested in seeing, as you bring proposed rate increases to us, like just a monthly increase to a general resident and business and that type of thing as well. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-48 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on August 1st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is ordinance number 2023-51.
You're going to get charged double. I don't mind.
My conscience.
This item is requesting approval to amend Section 17.17 of the Largo City Code to exclude dogs and other pets from George C. McGow Nature Park, except as provided by city policy. The Recreation Parks and Arts Department has numerous parks, and 3 of which that are designated as nature parks. Unlike all the other parks, the McGow Nature Park has several birds and animals that are cared for by staff and volunteers. The presence of dogs in the parks cause stress to the birds and could result in safety issues for both the handlers and the visitors attending the park. Staff are recommending an amendment to the policy that will exclude dogs and other pets from the park, and the policy would also restrict service animals from inside the nature center, on the outdoor deck, and in the areas of the park where animal cages are located. There are also times when volunteers walk birds throughout the park, and during these times there would be signs that would be placed up that those specific areas are restricted to dogs at that time. Phil and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ordinance number 2023-51, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the Largo City Code by amending Chapter 17, Parks and Recreation, by amending Section 17-17, Domestic Animals, to exclude dogs and other pets from the George C. McGow Nature Park, except as provided by city policy, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
We have no cards.
We've got a couple questions. Commissioner Holk.
Is it even legal to restrict service animals from anywhere?
We did meet with Mr. Zeman on that, and we'll let him answer that question.
Sorry, Commissioner, just had to unmute. Yes, under the ADA, we can, under certain circumstances, limit the use of service animals at a place like McGow Nature Park, and we'll be bringing the policy back to the Commission for approval that will regulate the use or the availability of service animals at McGow. You can, when they would cause potential harm to the animals at McGow, we can limit and restrict the use of the service animals. It's a limited situation. There are zoos across the country that do similarly what we're going to be proposing with regard to McGow. And I believe, Krista, that policy will be coming back on second reading?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good question. Commissioner Robinson.
So I think that my question is, what is the policy? But we're not going to know what the policy is until we vote on this a second time?
The policy will restrict the service animals to, exclude service animals from those specific areas. So it would be the areas where the birds are located inside the nature center, and then anytime that they are being walked, we would have signs out that said that that specific area is restricted as well.
Okay, so that I can understand that part of restricting dogs, I guess, is the concern here from McGow, especially if somebody's out walking a bird of prey, and so I can understand that part of it. Mike, can you help me understand why we need to restrict people from walking their dog in the park for any other reason?
It really just comes down to the safety of both the animals and the participants at the park. I mean, as well as the stress that it places on the animals. We did have, a while back, we had a service animal that was out there, and Sarge the eagle would not eat for several days afterwards. So that particular, that is what it is. It's the...
Okay, and I appreciate that part of it. I appreciate the part of not having them around the bird cages. I can appreciate the fact that, maybe we don't want them inside the building. My concern is the rest of the park. Like, there's a whole open, wide nature park out there that I'm sure people like to walk their animals or walk their dogs around in particular. So, we've had this question, I've had this question about some of our other nature parks as well. I don't understand, I don't know I can't figure out what the reasoning is to not be allowed to walk a dog in a nature preserve. Outside of the fact that, it can cause stress on the animals, the birds of prey that we have out there, and I understand that part of it. The other aspect, I don't understand.
And some of it at McGow becomes a control issue, and just being able to truly restrict where those personal animals are in the park. So just for the safety, we're recommending asking people to use the Bonner Nature Park as well as the Nature Preserve to walk their animals. So that the animals are permitted at both of those parks.
They are?
We have taken the signs down there.
Okay, because when we had this conversation last month, they weren't.
Neither Phil nor I knew that that was not in an ordinance. So when we met with Alan, we realized that that was the case.
Okay, thank you.
It's not uncommon at nature parks to restrict pets. That's a very common thing all around the county. So it has more to do with the environment, plants, and the wild animals that are in the park.
Sure, and I kind of can see that aspect of it, but I also think, though, that's a beautiful place that you would want to take your dog or whatever else you're walking to for a walk. I mean, I was walking my dog regularly at the nature preserve until I saw the sign when I drove in there. So apparently I was breaking what might not have been an ordinance, but I couldn't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's no more stress going to be put on a wild animal from my dog walking on a path with me than people running through the woods or a predator chasing them through those woods. So, I just don't think that, in my opinion, it's going to put any more stress on it. Just, again, my personal opinion on that. So I appreciate the conversation.
And we have removed those signs from both of those
Thank
parks.
you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. Krista, other than the incident you just mentioned with the eagle, have there been enough incidents where this has become an actual issue?
I don't know the number off the top of my head of how many happened. There was another situation where the bird a handler was holding it and actually flew off the arm of the handler, which is where we are concerned about the safety. It could attack the handler, it could attack the person, it could attack someone that was out there as well. But that's the only other situation I personally know of.
What other parks are there in the city where pets are restricted?
We do not have any other parks that would be
the only park in the city.
Correct.
Where this would be. But we do have parks that are designated dog parks, right? Mm-hmm. How many of those do we have?
We have one at Northeast Park and then one over at Bay Head.
Right, okay. And you're going to be bringing a policy when we review this on second reading. If this is approved tonight, there'll be a second reading. Policy will be separate from the ordinance, correct?
Yes.
It has to be. It has to be.
Yes, it will be.
Right. So what happens if we approve the ordinance and don't approve the policy? We send you back to rewrite it?
Correct.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question concerning service animals, and I certainly understand it makes sense that, if somebody's out walking a bird of prey in our Avon Veteran Alliance, is that the name of the program? And so we want to close off that sidewalk for the time being. We'll put signage there. Do we have any requirements or plan to take any specific considerations for disabled people or people that have a service animal that kind of want to see these birds of prey? Do we have a plan to manage that, or a requirement to manage that, I would say?
There wouldn't be a requirement to manage it. I mean, really, that's what we're trying to avoid, is that exposure from the animal to the birds themselves. So we would not have a plan for that.
Okay. What I'm saying, I guess, if somebody shows up with a service animal, regardless of what that service animal provides for the person, perhaps a staff person would walk with that person to let them see the birds of prey. If they want to see the displays, but the dog can't be in the presence of the displays. That's
where I thought you might be going with that.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a discretionary thing with staff. This is maybe I can take your animal out to the parking lot until you have a chance to view the birds. And if it's super important for them to be there with that animal, I mean, that's just a tough spot to be in, but
Right,
that's
understood.
reality. Yep.
Okay. And I did get some questions about why all the signs came down, like if it was vandalism or if we changed our policy, and then the three answer is we didn't really have a policy, we just had signs.
Correct.
Exactly, and that's, sometimes we inherit these things. So, Parks and Rec Month.
Right. Parks and Parks.
Sorry, Rec and Parks.
That's actually different. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-51 on first reading and schedule second and public hearing, reading and public hearing on August 1st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Mr. Zimmett, anything else this evening?
I have nothing further tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. The last item, just in time. Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, two little things. I know the state of Florida puts these signs out, no littering, first offense, $100 fine. I've seen some of them. Can we get some of them to distribute? We have a lot of litter in the city of Largo, and I thought with the state, if we can get those signs complimentary, but I've seen, there's a bunch of them down on 66th Street, all the good it's doing. That's number one. Number two, the gentleman about the drug issue down on Adrian Avenue, that was new to me. I think I was on the commission, the dates that he was talking about, and I don't recall that.
And that predates my time as well, so we will definitely look into it and give you some
Yeah,
more
but I think the
information.
years that he was saying that, I may have been on the commission, and I just don't recall. I mean, I don't think we need to have a public hearing on that.
No.
It's
but-
just, and he was implying that this is still going on. I have no comment on that. I would just like more information. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate Miley again for an outstanding accomplishment that's really noteworthy. I want to thank the staff and the folks over who are building the Horizon Project for the tour that we had the other day. It's really pretty amazing. It's going to be a beautiful building and noteworthy. And other than that, no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you. So I had to go out during the gentleman's public comments. I do think I heard, though, that he implied that the police department was also drug dealers.
Yeah.
So, take that with what you want. But I just wanted to say also thank you to staff as well as Biltmore Construction for having us out to the new City Hall parking garage the other day. It was really, really exciting to go out there and talk about the project and see how it's coming along so far. So I really do appreciate that time. And lastly, unrelated to anything up here, but personally to me, I wanted to congratulate my daughter, Grace, who just has her first job with Escambia County, clerk of the courts, and she started yesterday. And so proud dad moment for me. So congratulations.
Congratulations to you too on your daughter having her first job.
Yes, no doubt. Maybe that gets a little less expensive for dad, but we'll see.
Vice Mayor Hulk.
Yes, I just want to extend also congratulations to Miley, and it's so awesome, the celebrities that we are, and the awards that are coming to the city of Largo and our citizens, and just makes us that much more proud to be part of the city and have them in it. Live, work, and play. That's what we do here. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
I wanted to thank Jerry and his team for a fantastic presentation last night at St. Paul's Church on the Rosary Road Neighborhood Improvement Plan meeting. It was an informational meeting. It was really well done, and a lot of people there, so it was nice to see the engagement, a lot of positivity in the neighborhood, so I like that. So very neat. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Miley, I congratulate you. It's so cool to see so many famous people coming here and coming from Largo, and there's just the stories there. I think that would be a great piece if the Largo leader, or whatever it's called, would love to write a piece about that. That would be a great piece on her and what she's accomplished in our great city. And it is, like everybody said, Parks and Recs Month. Kai, you did an awesome job. Speaking, I'm not that great of a public speaker like that. I don't have the voice to carry across a room. But I really appreciate everything you said and what our staff does in recreation, parks, and arts do for our citizens. During COVID, and I tell everybody, just get out there and enjoy the parks. It's such a cool place. During COVID, it was a saving grace for my relationship because I could get out there and walk around the nature preserve, and I was able to get my partner out there who trying to get in. Other than he likes to take photos, he's not very big on nature as much, but I have to say during COVID, the preserve changed his perspective and now loves going out there even without me, which is nice to take photos and wander around there. So I tell all our citizens, it's just not Central Park. It is our little parks that we have that are in your neighborhoods, and I thank our staff for taking care of them and providing this resource to our citizens. So please take advantage of them. And like Kai said, write a letter, just say thank someone. I work as a city employee for somewhere, and when a citizen comes up and just says thank you, it makes so much difference to a city employee. It gives us a smile and an accomplishment that we're doing, and every day I thank our city staff for everything y'all do. The last thing I have a question for is if we could, PD, maybe look into the trailer pin and get that situated, fixed. Okay, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I wrote that down and forgot it. Didn't on my list here. But I wanted to thank all the team members that worked on the fireworks in Central Park. I saw a couple different shows last week, and I think that ours was the best by a long shot. I especially liked the multiple finales. They paused, and then a little rocket went up, and I'm like, there's more. Everybody was excited about that. But I know that there was many departments that cooperated on that event, and it was. I heard nothing, but the park was full, even though it was 2 days early, through really no fault of our own. But it was a great event. It was really well run, and great. Kudos to everybody that worked on that. The second thing, Mr. Murtha has brought this up before, and I think we might want to I'd like to maybe take a look at how many evacuation zones are in activity centers where we're giving density bonuses for different things, and just see how that overlay is. I know in West Bay Drive area, Clear Largo Road, there's no evacuation zones along those. Probably Largo Mall might be touched a little bit, and certainly Tri-City, but I think that there's some logic to maybe not encouraging higher density in evacuation zones, certainly the ones that are more likely to evacuate. So if we could take a look at those maps, that'd be great. And that's all I have. Ms. Pollock,
I don't have anything this evening.
welcome up here, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any action items?
Yes. Request from Commissioner Holmes that staff include the cost to the average family or business when money is borrowed for 30 years or more, when requests for debt are brought to the City Commission, including the borrowing for Horizon. A request by Mayor Brown for the impact of monthly sewer rate increases on residents. A request by Commissioner Holmes that staff request no littering signs from the state. A request by Commissioner Smith that staff look at the trailer pin issue raised by the speaker. And a request by Mayor Brown that information be provided on how many developments with density bonuses are located in evacuation zones.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.